Hello. So this week, what the Akashic Records are asking us is, what are you getting out of the things you think you have to do? What are you getting out of the things you think you have to do? And this is like, as they often do, it's a specifically worded kind of inquiry and invitation here. And one piece that I want to focus in on first is the things you think you have to do. We're talking about the things you think you have to do, not the things you actually have to do. And so we'll kind of sink into the playfulness of that. There's a little bit of a cheekiness there. Okay, and so we'll kind of meet this question with that acknowledgement and awareness that they're being a little bit cheeky here. So what does this mean? What do you get out of the things you think you have to do? I'll use an example. And this is such an easy one, and it's I feel like one that is relatable to a lot of people. So I'll use this example, including myself. So maybe you feel like you have to work a certain amount, right? Or you feel like you have to overexert yourself in order to meet the requirement of whatever that is. Whatever requirement is there, externally or internally. So you think you have to overexert yourself, overgive, right? Overwork yourself in order to what? And what is it that you're getting from this thing you think you have to do, overworking? So if you think you have to overwork yourself or overgive of yourself, or if you think you have to do something that you don't really love to do, but you do it anyway, what are you getting out of that? If it's not something you actually have to do, but perhaps you're convinced, maybe it doesn't feel like, oh, I don't actually have to do it. Maybe it's subconscious. And that's the tricky bit with this, is that the things we think we have to do will feel the same way as the things we have to do. So even hearing that, you might feel some resistance of like, no, but I do actually have to do that. I do actually have to work really hard because my job is that way. That's the expectation. So there might be some pushback. And so I will trust you to kind of be present with that. So acknowledging that there might be some pushback to what we think we have to do versus what we actually are obliged to do. Inside that, if you can kind of sink in, and there's an invitation for deep honesty here, right? To kind of reflect very honestly, do you actually have to do this thing? Underneath that, what are you getting out of it? And this could be so subtle. It could be so tender. When you overwork yourself, when you have done it, when you have given enough, when you have exhausted yourself, what is the feeling you get after you've done that thing? Maybe it's satisfaction. Like, oh, now I know I've done enough. So now I feel satisfied with my contribution. Maybe it's relief of like, whew, okay, I've done enough and now I can relax. Maybe it's a sense of belonging. I did enough and so now they'll like me. I've done enough to get their approval for now, for the time being. I've done enough to feel okay, to feel safe. I've done enough. I've overexhausted myself, and now I can brag about it a little bit and say, oh yeah, I worked XXX number of hours this week. I'm so tired. I'm more tired than you are because I worked twice as many hours as you did. And I'm laughing because I've done that so many times. I've bragged about that so many times in the past. So maybe you've done that once or twice yourself, right? So whether it's pride or belonging or satisfaction, safety, relief, or maybe it's something else. Maybe there's a pleasure in that. Maybe it just feels good. Like a pleasurable kind of satisfaction of like, ooh, yay. Or maybe it's, now I've done enough so I can get a little treat. Whatever that thing is, notice. Can you notice what the thing that you're getting out of that is? And in other conversations around this very nuanced, very, very human topic of the things we convince ourselves that we have to do, there's so many things, there's so many directions we can go in. And we've talked about this before, right? Of like kind of dissolving these things. But that's not what the invitation here is. You don't have to do anything about this. You don't have to stop doing it. You don't even have to recognize that you don't have to do it. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to change anything right now about what you're doing. The invitation here is notice what you're getting out of it and really take that in. What are you getting out of the things you think you have to do? Because if you're forcing yourself, if you're expending a lot of energy to do something you think you have to do, if you're doing something hard, the invitation is at least get the thing out of it. Reap the thing out of it. Take the pleasure that you worked so hard for. Even if it's kind of a contorted, kind of watery, subconscious thing. If there's a subconscious kind of mechanism at play here, can you bring just enough awareness to it to at least feel the satisfaction deeply, to feel the relief deeply, to feel the safety deeply, to enjoy the bragging deeply. And remembering there's a cheekiness to this, right? If this is an indulgence, can you let yourself indulge in it? Can you let yourself actually take the pleasure that you're working very hard to get? Even if it's kind of a contorted or murky or kind of like there's like this kind of subconscious, like watery, hidden, shadowy, like path that we're taking through this, right? So we're saying, I have to do this thing so I can get what? And there are conversations you can have that we can have around like how to find a more direct path to that thing. But for right now, you don't even have to change it. Just notice, are you really fully sinking in, taking in the thing that you're wanting to get out of that? This is a subtle, kind of subversive, very human, very shadowy perspective to a very human, shadowy thing. So I will let you sit with that. And you might notice that this feels terrible to you, that it doesn't feel good, that you don't like it, and that's okay. I'm not trying to convince you to do anything. All this is giving you permission to enjoy yourself a little bit more in the context that you're already in. Okay. So I'm going to leave you with that for today. And if you contemplate this, if this sparks something in you, if this inspires something in you, and you want to share, you're welcome to leave a comment or send me a message on my website, minaruchi.com. I'd love to hear what this sparked inside you. And until next time, I'm wishing you well. Namaste.